This podcast is powered by the Mitt TV of Romeo, Michigan. If you're looking to start a podcast for your business or personal use, look no further than the Mitt TV. Their in-studio podcast experience allows you to record perfect audio and capture amazing video. That's all right here at the Mitt TV podcast studio in Romeo, Michigan. Contact them now via email for a free consultation and to schedule a studio visit at mitt.tvpodcast@gmail.com. We have Christy Seitz with us tonight in our program called Getting to Know Your Candidates. And Christy, we've been doing this for a long time, and during this, every election year is like this. You know, our viewers say, are you going to do the program Getting to Know Your Candidates?
Program.
Yeah, because we're all busy, right? And nobody really, unless you have a student at the schools or you have some issue with the district, you're not going to know who's on the board, how many people are on the board, how many seats are up, and all of that.
Right.
So you get to the ballot and you want to be responsible for your decision.
Correct.
So it helps to know who you're voting for as a person, you know, as a mom,
right,
a teacher, or whatever. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Romeo grad myself. I graduated in 2004. Long line of Romeo graduates. My great-grandpa, I've mentioned this multiple times, was class president of 1926, which was cool to find that box of, you know, photos when my grandpa, when he passed, I found them. So that was really cool. Yeah. My grandma was in the Romeo Observer back when we still had it.
Yeah.
Getting her gown in 1954, and it's cool that 50 years later I graduated and got mine. So I'm an aunt to current Bulldogs at Indian Hills, and then I have a son that is at Croswell currently, and then my daughter will be there next year. So I have smaller children, but
younger children.
Yes, yeah, I knew we wanted to be in Romeo when we were having kids, so that's what brought us here.
So you came back home.
I never really left home, to be honest with you. I mean, I moved out,
right?
but I've always been in Romeo in some capacity. You know, me and my husband did live north for about a year and a half, but then when we were buying a house, we were going to be buying in Washington. So,
and your mom is Lindbergh?
Linneberg, yeah, Sally Linneberg,
right?
Mm-hmm. She graduated in 76.
I graduated in 77.
No
so
way.
I'm glad that you didn't say your grandfather graduated in my year.
No, she graduated with a couple of our cousins that lived next door for a while too. So, yep.
Yeah, we knew each other in high school. So, but it's nice to see, you know, people in the area come back or stay and get involved.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
You know, so why did you decide to get involved with going out for a position for a Board of Education?
Well, partially because I am a career services professional. So I'm a recruiter. I do workshops on job searching and how to do all of that. And one of the things that I have discovered in working with hiring managers, especially with the younger generations, is that the workforce just isn't prepared. Educationally, like absolutely, but there's a lot of things that I think are missing. And I think that could really bridge a gap with somebody that has an experience like me, where I'm out there talking to the people that are afraid to hire the younger generations because, you know, they don't have some of the life skills. They have
or work ethic.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe that too, a little bit. I do give them a slight pass because I know a few years ago we had a strange time in this world. But in general, it just felt like the right thing to do. I've always had a passion for leadership. I've always had a passion for the district, and I just love Romeo. So I wanted to get involved where it made sense for me.
Right.
So
do you go to the meetings? Do you watch the meetings?
I do. I started going to the meetings about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Right after my son was born, actually. He was 5 weeks old when I went to the first one. Partially because I wanted to know what was going on, but I did have to switch mostly to virtual for a little while because, again, kids. I am married to a farmer, so his schedule can be a little wonky in the basically spring till December-ish. But now that they're a little bit older, you know, I can make my time available. But I've been watching the virtual meetings for a few years now, especially. But I go when I can physically.
Right.
So
do you watch them on the Mitt?
Is that where they? I just get I usually just see the link. So I guess I've never paid attention to where the link was coming from. So
I was teasing Jason because you said, of course I watch it on the Mitt.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
you know, it's important.
Yeah, I know I watched the
For
Village ones on the Mitt,
Oh
so.
yeah. Well, then you're probably watching it on the
Yep,
Mitt too. But you know, we look at candidates and their experience.
correct.
And, you know, do they know the position that they're running for?
Right.
So it helps to know, you know, that you've been watching it or you've been involved.
Yeah, I've definitely kept a pulse to kind of understand what was going on. And I know things changed in the last few years that, you want to make sure that when my kids are coming of into the school age that
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for, you know.
Right.
I mean, even just for me to know, I think more parents need to be involved in school board meetings in general.
Yeah. How do
Yeah.
you plan on raising a young family and, you know, having a husband who's a farmer? I mean, that's a huge job itself. How do you find the time? How do you plan to find the time to get involved?
By telling him he has to be home. No, I've already, we've discussed the time commitment. That's something that I said it's time. I've done, like I said, my son is has started school. My
Mhm.
daughter is about to be in, preschool next year. So we're at the point where I'm comfortable leaving my kids with, a sitter or him. For a little while I wasn't. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, I think
When
all
they're
moms
little.
understand that, that it's sometimes hard and they're just so cute to walk away from.
Yeah.
But the time commitment, I'm ready for it. I've kind of taken my life back this year. And so I'm ready to like really get back into things I love, which is, volunteering, community initiatives, all of that. So
So what specifically was the turning point when you said, I got to get involved? I'm going to run for school board.
probably a couple years ago, I was just, again, I've always kind of talked to, teachers because I was a good kid in school. So I always
Were
stayed
you?
I
I
stayed in,
wasn't.
I know some of them will vouch for me. No, I've always stayed in touch. I was in theater. So I think the theater kids have always kind of stayed involved with Romeo because Kendra's amazing. So it's always kind of, I mean, even my friends that are out of state, when she was
Oh,
retiring, we
he's
all talked
amazing.
about it. So, I was always kind of looking at the school. But then I was talking to people because I was, inquiring about the preschool because, most of my friends their kids went to, different ones because it worked out better with like their work schedules. So
Sure.
I didn't really know a lot of kids that went to Croswell specifically until I started asking. Started finding out just things that were slightly concerning with registration and how long it was taking. And I was like, well, why would I be on a wait list here and maybe not here? And so just kind of started digging in and kind of hearing that not everybody had the perfect Romeo experience initially that I felt I did. And I thought, well, how can I help? How can I take this information and put it into good use, essentially? So
Right.
that was, kids. I think having kids,
Right.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's what usually changes most
Yeah,
people's, minds in taking that time out of your personal life because it
correct.
does take a lot of time. You know, we talk about that and we talk about some of the trending words and
Right.
critical thinking.
Yeah.
You know, how do you find the time to research the issues, especially when you're new? You know, it'll take a while
Yeah.
on the board. You know, where are you going to find that time
Yeah.
to do the research?
Yeah. Yeah. And making sure it's, a little unbiased or,
Mhm.
just finding the right, finding the right stuff is hard sometimes. So,
Right.
you know.
So, how do you feel about your ability, knowing that? Have you ever been on a board before?
I have. I've been on, well, I was in a sorority, so I was on our
Okay.
sorority board. I know
They can have some disagreements too.
trust me, yeah, I mean, I've lived with 26 girls at one point and I survived. So,
Yeah.
yes, I was on a board there. I was on the Panhell there for our college, the one
Okay.
that oversees all of them. So,
Sure.
and then just small other boards, just volunteer boards and stuff like that.
So, how do you think you're set up emotionally, mentally to, I asked everyone the same question, asked Jason the same question, to reach across the table and talk to a fellow board member that might not have the same opinion.
Yeah.
How do you feel with, conflict and your ability to solve that?
I feel like that is something I'm pretty good at handling. I've
Mhm.
always been a pretty even keel person. I'm interested in why you think the way you think and why I think the way I think. And I always think that there can be a middle ground. I've always felt that way since I've been a child. I don't know if it's because I'm a middle child. I don't know, that matters, but I feel like I always want to understand why someone feels passionately about something. And maybe it's something I haven't thought of. I don't know everything, you know. People are interesting to me. So I feel like for me, you know, if that's going to happen, you're going to disagree. You're never going to see eye to eye with people. That's
Right.
That's why we have a whole board of different opinions to kind of find that cohesive middle ground.
That's why you have a board.
Exactly. And
opinions.
that's why there's 7, because there's going to be a tying or a breaking vote somewhere, right?
Right.
So, you know, we have to go with what the majority, you know, thinks. So,
well, speaking of the board,
yes.
and watching the meetings,
Correct.
you know, if you watched last month's meeting, you saw that our district and our board's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You know, Todd Robinson got great reports. I think he's doing an amazing job. And, you know, the board has done well in getting those reports besides the district and our wonderful kids.
Yes.
I love the way they have the kids make the reports now.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
the trained speakers
they were great.
I literally was like, this is amazing. Like I didn't speak that way at 16, 17, 18. I barely speak that way now.
Yeah. And you never had an opportunity. That's why I really enjoyed the fact that they give those kids that opportunity. But they've been doing a good job.
Correct.
In, you know, what you've been watching in the last, you know, years, do you see anything that you could expand on or improve being on the board?
Yeah, I think overall the board has done amazing. I think, you know, that really one of the reasons why I chose to run is because there was a couple incumbents that aren't running. So it was like, who's going to take those spots, you know? So I think they've done a great job. I went to the state of the district, I think it was in February of last year, maybe March. And I was amazed because, you know, our budget was amazing. We have a surplus. I don't want to say we're finding places to put money, but a lot of other school districts around us are cutting. So I think they've done amazing. I have nothing bad to say about any of that. I think for me, the experience I'm having with like enrollment, maybe some bumps we could help fix there. In being, you know, we have a few union endorsements, talking to them and strengthening that relationship so that kids know that maybe they don't have to take the formal path to college. And not only, I know we have an amazing academy, they all mentioned like Romeo's amazing. And I'm like, that's cool that, you know, UAW knows that, or, you know, I know, like, it's cool to hear, but how could we better help the kids get into those programs if they're, you know, if they're interested in an apprenticeship, and how could they dual enroll like we do with the Macomb community and do that? So those are things that I have ideas for. I do think that maybe a little bit better communication can go a little bit of a, you know, a long way. But for overall, I think, I mean, Romeo's doing great. There's a reason why our budget's as great as it is. So
yeah. I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been a big promoter of them for years, and I just think even with, you know, getting new superintendents, and the board was still you know, had the ability to work together and get things done. And you know, they went through a terrible time during COVID.
They did.
Of course that's going to be a subject you know, to talk about. And you know, we seem to be coasting out of it a little bit now, but you know, there was a lot of stress in the families, especially the kids. That
I was a COVID pregnancy, so I 100%, it was scary. It was, I had to be separated from my husband during labor for a while, for 3 hours. It was scary. You know, it was a time. I think we all have a little bit of, you know, PTSD from it. So.
Absolutely. How did you think that they did? Were you able to watch it during that time?
Yeah, during that time I watched, I think they were, you know, I think they did as best they could with what they were able to do. You know, I know it was hard to not have the kids in school. I know, like, you know, I had family that they were impacted, and not all kids did great virtual, and then some kids, you know, thrived. I think if it were to happen again, I would hope we're better prepared as a country, as a world. I thought that they did the best that they could do, but you know, at a certain point, it's kind of out of their hands. You know, if the state was shut down, for example, and we open the school, now you got a lawsuit from a state, and ideally the school board's trying to avoid lawsuits and funding taken away, right? So I thought they did as best they could.
I do too. I think they you know, everybody looked all worn out. You know that you know Dr. Robinson was working his butt off every day, you know, to keep the energy up, to keep the positive,
to keep people feeling, as you know, as a Romeo grad, like, we're a community. We've always felt that way. I feel a weird tie to Romeo with that, you know, like, oh, you're from Romeo. It's just a thing.
Do you want to be my friend?
Well, and to think that maybe kids didn't get that feeling during that time. It's, you know, unfortunately, we can't go back and fix it, but I hope that they felt connected as best they could, you know?
Right.
So,
If we went through that again,
yeah.
something like that, with what we know now,
Yeah.
what we know now about a little bit more about the vaccine, a
Yeah.
little bit more about masks, a little bit more about, the situation of isolation and homeschooling and being in class.
Yeah.
How would you stand for it now?
I mean, obviously, essentially everything comes down from the state and federal first. For me, I was never a mandate person for vaccines. I know that was a topic that came up. I think that's a slippery slope. I think that should be people's choice. I mostly felt the same way about masks. However, on my personal, I preferred masks around me because I was pregnant. So I didn't know what that was going to do. So, but I do believe in autonomy with that kind of stuff. I don't think that you can force that stuff on people. That's a medical decision. That's on them mostly, or the parents. So,
right.
Yeah.
And at the state level.
Well,
for
right. I mean, I guess if it's mandated down, like I said, you're kind of in a pickle because you don't want to lose your funding, right? But I'd like to think that we wouldn't have to go through that again. We know we know the aftermath isn't as, bad as it was before, so better prepared, I'm hoping.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, and we hear about people's concerns, and especially with social media, with everything that goes on, not necessarily with the children, the students, but with the community.
Right.
And there's lots of talk about bathrooms, and whether it's hype or fear, we hear about it. We know that Romeo has 3 bathrooms, which I'm not sure that it's ever going to be a situation with us. But how do you feel about that when there is possible mandates about building another bathroom for transgender, having 3 bathrooms?
I mean, it's a complicated issue, obviously. This isn't something our parents went through, so we're navigating it all together, right? I know Title IX is more about, avoiding discrimination in education, and whether, kids have to go to the bathroom during the day.
Yeah. And you have to have people monitor the bathrooms also.
Correct. Yeah. And that's where, I understand some of the fears that maybe people have because, boy, girl, all of that. I think that should probably be in your mind at any point when you have teenagers and hormonal kids in the schools, right?
Crazy things went on in those bathrooms.
I hope not. I don't know.
There's some cigarette smoking in my day.
I was gonna say I do remember that my mom said that kids could smoke cigarettes, so I could see that.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy because I don't even think you can be within 100 feet of a school with a cigarette now.
No.
But
yeah.
Sorry, side note.
Yeah.
For me, again, it's going to come down from what does that look like? That sounds like a conversation between the parent and the administration, and it kind of gets into medical and probably a little bit of HIPAA when it comes to how that's maneuvered. Of course, we want all the students to feel safe and included and, able to go to the bathroom, a basic human need, but how that looks federally, how that looks statewide, it's a little bit out of the hands of the school board, but I do believe that the school board should be open to having conversations with parents about it and seeing where we fall as a community realistically. I think everybody is allowed to have an opinion about it. I just don't know, how you go against what a federal regulation might be. So, it might be out of the hands of the school boards to protect the school from lawsuits, essentially, because it can drain your budget. And as we just discussed, our budget's great. Yeah. So, it's not a black and white answer, to be honest with you. I wish it was, but,
So even though you have a young family but you do talk to your relatives and people in
the
district and in the neighborhood, do you feel that it was beneficial for in-home schooling, online schooling? Is it better to have them in the class?
During the pandemic?
Yeah. How did you feel back then?
I thought, I
you
hated that I didn't have kids, but
yeah.
I was waiting. I was hoping every day they'd go back, not for my own, but I just, again, that bond with the school, the other kids, the teachers, I couldn't imagine having a fourth grade teacher that I never saw in person, or so, I mean, I
And
wanted
they had masks on. You couldn't see their smile.
that too. I mean, and I even,
expression.
my son has a speech delay because, we couldn't see anybody. So, I didn't love it. I didn't love that they weren't in the classroom. I understood why. I understood, sometimes there's a grandparent caregiver that can't be exposed. I mean, my son just started school, and within the first week he got a cold. I mean, it was the back to school germies. So I didn't love it. I think in the classroom is always the best place to be. I am sure there are some kids that maybe, thrived a little because maybe they have a little bit of anxiety and maybe the hybrid worked better for them. But overall, I mean, kids need to be around each other.
Yeah.
So.
And they're resilient. They're resilient.
They are, but I hate that they have to be.
I know. Yeah.
I know that, and you hear that all the time, but it's just, it's sad that they missed a couple of years of time together, like we're only little for so long.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a different world out there with social media.
Yeah.
We've addressed that with a lot of the candidates.
Yeah.
It's a different world out there now. You used to get home and
could cut it off. Yeah.
You had your family, you had a phone on the wall. That was for adults.
I remember friends calling and having to ask for me, and my mom having to call me downstairs.
Yeah,
and,
who is
it? Yep.
And, especially if you lived on a farm, you worked, you did your homework, you had dinner, you went to bed.
Yeah.
So, and you got a break from the situations. And, a couple of the candidates talked about that too, about just personal bullying.
Yeah.
That they at least got a break when they got home.
Yeah.
So, it's a different world for them. And we find that also when it's an election year.
Yeah.
We see crazy stuff out there on social media because the cowards out there are pretty strong on this other side of the screen. You never see them out there. You never see them doing good things. You never see them out at all.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't talk to you like that if they approached you, if they met you
half the time. I don't think they even know that it's you that they're talking. You
they
see
never see your face and all that. So
yeah,
how do you deal with that? We've given the opportunity for all the candidates to talk about any issue that they want to talk about or debunk that you do see on social media, regarding your candidacy.
I mean, there's a lot of things out there. For me, I deal with it by just, I know people are going to say things. I know I'm not for everybody. That's why there's 7 people running. Hopefully there's enough of, somebody for somebody, right? Like, again, it's a whole board. It's all different backgrounds, all different thoughts on everything. So I would like to see, I'm not a fan of all of the social media bullying. I don't know how to stop it. I wish I did. But, in my mind, I just want us all to be able to focus on why we're running, which is for the community, for the kids, for the teachers, for our school, for the love of Romeo. At the end of the day, we're all still neighbors. Our kids all still go to school together. So for me, it's been hard to see that. It's been hard. I don't know, you don't want to step on toes and reach out to somebody and maybe upset them, but at the same time, I just think it's a hard time,
Right.
I wish there could be some sort of kibosh of, hey, we all just don't go on social media for the next 34 days or something.
Yeah, and it seems to be more allowed in government and campaigns.
Yeah,
like, they just expect it.
Yeah, and for me too, it's like, I think people forget that, sometimes something that you might believe as a parent or do as a parent doesn't mean that that's something that you're going to do, in a position like this. You don't even have the power to do that, and nor would you. So, I believe in parenting freedoms, and that's, that's big. That's why we're in America, So
yeah, if we have an America left,
right? We all don't.
We live in troubled times.
I know, it's scary.
So what would you tell the people out there that are going to be going to the ballot on November 5th, why they should pick you to sit in that one open seat?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should pick me because I'm, deeply rooted here. I've seen the community go through all of the ups and downs. I've seen the new schools. I've seen us, rezone kids. I was rezoned myself at one point. I've kind of been through a lot of it. I've been in the schools, near the schools, around the schools for a very long time. The teachers, endorsed us, which I thought was great. We went and we got a bunch of union endorsements to help, build with the academy. I have a lot of insight on, how to help the kids transition from a high school graduate to a career, whatever that looks like, whether it's the formal education path and maybe some ideas on classes to take or the skilled trades, or maybe a gap year. I don't know. I know that's a thing now.
Yeah.
I just think that I know this place. I know the people. I love the community. And I think that's a reason that, I should be considered. I've got a really good understanding of collective bargaining and budgets and all of that stuff in my professional career, and just dealing with different types of people. That's what I do. So.
Right. So how do people get a hold of you? Do you have a website? Can they call you? Can they get you on Facebook?
I already have my phone blowing up all the time with my clients, which is great. But we do have a Facebook page. It was accidentally set up private. We do have a public page as well. So Seitz and Smith for Christy Seitz and Jason Smith for Romeo School Board is our Facebook page.
Okay.
And then we do have an email. It's bulldogsonboard@gmail.com.
Okay. And say the Facebook again. That's the open one that they can
The open one
send
is
a
the page.
message or
Yeah,
question?
yeah. There's a page and a group. We let one to come in. Everyone is allowed to come into the page. Obviously
And leave a PM.
leave a PM, but yeah, the page. I think the page you can send a message to as well. So it's just Christy Seitz and Jason Smith for Romeo School Board.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do. You see it, ramping up, and then
Yeah.
before November, people start asking questions because it's getting closer.
Of course, yeah, and it's like link in and ask.
Right.
I keep catching this.
Yeah, it's all right.
and ask your questions. So
Good. Well, thank you very much for
You're
joining us
welcome.
today.
Yeah.
We're so glad you came
Yeah.
and talked to our viewers and the voters out there, and get out and vote. It's important.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.